Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Roth-Gorelick, the CEO of Illuminate. Welcome to our Crown Jewel Conversations series, and thank you for joining us today from all over the world. Illuminate runs a monthly Crown Jewel Conversation webcast featuring Rachel Weinstein, Illuminate's immediate past president, who highlights one member of the Illuminate Collective, our signature leadership advancement program for bold and courageous Jewish women entrepreneurial women executives who are running organizations around the world, working for social change and innovation. These conversations focus on today's intractable issues and innovative solutions developed by Jewish women leaders. Our global network of change makers is now 50 women strong and growing. Illuminate is also dedicated to educating women philanthropists about emergent social issues and impactful investments to support Jewish women leaders working for social change. Philanthropists of all financial capacities are welcome to participate, no matter where you are physically located. Our conversation today will allow you to get to know one of the incredible women in this movement. Shahanna McKinney-Baldon is the founding executive director of Edot Midwest Regional Jewish Diversity Collaborative. She also holds several appointments at University of Wisconsin-Madison. My daughter was a Badger, so we're very fond of Wisconsin, this room. The Madison, Wisconsin Center for Education Research, including Special Assistant for Diversity and Inclusion, Evaluation Implementation Specialist, and Trainer Curriculum Writer with fairplaygame.org, a video game-based simulation that teaches about racism in graduate-level STEM education. Shahanna also serves as co-director for TIAV, an evaluation group focused on Jews of color-led culturally responsive evaluation of community racial justice initiatives. I know her as a longtime national thought leader on racial and ethnic diversity in the Jewish community, and she's held leadership roles in many different Jewish organizations and in public education. Shahanna, we are so happy to have you here today with us. And as I pass this over to Rachel, I just want to ask the audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we will do our best to incorporate them if time allows. Rachel?
Thank you, Melanie, and hello, everyone, and happy Hanukkah. It's so wonderful to see so many new faces here today. And it's so fitting that we're having this conversation in the middle of Hanukkah. First of all, to me, these conversations once a month are totally a light, and it's such a joy to sit in conversation with our jewels. And I'm especially happy to talk to you today, Shahanna. And also, it's an opportunity for our jewels to shine a light on the issue area that they're working. So it's just very fitting that we're doing this in the middle of Hanukkah. So hello and welcome, Shahanna. It's such a pleasure to talk with you. And, I want to jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to the work that you're doing?
Hi, Rachel, Melanie, sisters. Let me see. I can't see myself. Let me try this. How's that? I'm so glad to be here. I wish everyone here a bright Hanukkah. I love being called a jewel, and I do feel like a jewel here, a glittering jewel with all of you and with all of the sisters in our circle of leaders at Illuminate. I want to clarify a few things here. First of all, hopefully the website for my organization, Edot Midwest, the Midwest Regional Jewish Diversity and Racial Justice Collaborative, hopefully the website is in the chat. I want to encourage you all to email me through the website. If you just email through the website, it'll come to me. That goes for you, Mom. I know you're here. And others, I'm not looking at the chat, so if you private message me, I won't see it. Can I highlight you, Mom. No pressure, but can everybody just say hello to my mother? Are you there? My mother, Harriet McKinney in Milwaukee. Hi, Mom.
Shahanna's mom.
Hannah, we should bring on all the moms because my mom's here too.
Oh, well, if you're a host,
My
click
And my
mother-in-law's here
mother-in-law.
here. This is so perfect because tonight begins Chag Habanot, the North African celebration of the 7th day of Hanukkah as the holiday for the daughters. And so this Chag Habanot, let's give shouts out to all the mothers. Hi, Mom, I love you.
I love you too, but now I'm in Florida. I should be.
I love
That's
you.
right, she's in Florida. Sorry, so sorry for you down in warm Florida.
It's raining and cold.
Oh, good, I feel better. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, everyone, in Dejope, the homeland of the Ho-Chunk people, also known as Madison, Wisconsin. Thank you, Melanie, for that shout out. I did not know that you were part of our Badger family. I want to clarify one more thing. I have a friend here who has a name that's very similar to mine. I want to highlight you. Is that okay, Shoshana? This is my friend, Shoshana.
Yeah, sure.
She is Shoshana McKinney. I am Shahanna McKinney. We're like doppelgangers. We're like internet doppelgangers. She is also an African-American Jewish woman leader who's doing incredible things, but we are different people. She's in Uganda. I'm in Wisconsin, and you're going to hear more about me soon. But Google Shoshana and her work. She's a wonderful sister, and I'm glad to see you here. Hi. Happy Hanukkah to the community.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you. So, okay, setting the table here. Now I think I'm ready to jump in. Is that okay, Rachel? Okay. So I have some slides here, just to the question of who am I and what is the work that I'm doing. Let's see. Here we are. So this is my family. You see my mother there. She looks a little different. She has on the blonde sheitel. This was my nephew Noah's bar mitzvah. And in this photo, you see my mother, my father. You see my brothers here. This one is my husband. This is my son. This is a few years ago. This son is a sophomore in college, and he's 6'3". This one just got her driver's license. That's my daughter. And we are a close, large African-American and Ashkenazi with Native American and Sephardi roots, Wisconsin Jewish family. And this is me in 2nd grade, a page from our yearbook at Hillel Academy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Can you see me? I look pretty much the same. I am a longtime thought leader on racial and ethnic diversity in the American Jewish community. I need to update my bio with Illuminate. A little bit of that is out of date. I no longer co-direct TUV, but I am still an important, the TUV is still very important to me. TUV is a hub for Jews of color-led, culturally responsive evaluation in the Jewish nonprofit sector. And I now am working with a new project at the university that I'll look forward to telling you more about. I'm collaborating on that project with another sister from our Illuminate circle. Michal Taukalech Avera Samuel is here. Hi, Michal. She's from a cohort before mine, and more about that in a moment. But anyway, that's me when I was in 2nd grade. A little bit about who I am, where I come from. I've been doing this work for a long time, but ADOT is pretty new. We started less than 5 years ago, and Our work is about ending the effects of racism on Midwest Jewish community life. As we all know, the Jews are diverse. It's in our Torah. We've been diverse since the beginning. And that diversity continues today. It continues through conversion, adoption, it continues through birth. This is my son, again, an old picture. This is the college sophomore with his Bucky Badger t-shirt on, making challah. The Pew study from 2020, it seems so long ago, but you'll recall that it found that 15% of US Jews under the age of 30 identify as Hispanic, Black, Asian, other race, or multiracial, and that Jews who are also people of color face unique challenges. This quote from Alana Kaufman of Jews of Color Initiative, that racism pushes Jews of color away from the Jewish community to seek our refuge elsewhere. So poignant today with everything that's happening, spikes in anti-Semitism, new types of worries about Jewish continuity. Our work is a special type of kiruv work, bringing people closer to their Judaism, to their Jewish identities. We launched ADOT in August of 2019 as a hub for doing this work for our region, the Midwest region. The Midwest region has many fewer Jews than Illuminate's home of New York. Many fewer Jews, fewer people of color. Our Jewish community organizations are much, much smaller. Our federations aren't necessarily giving the types of grants that we see in larger communities. And so we launched again in August of 2019 as a regional hub for the work of lifting up diversity in the Jewish community. We use the federal census designation for Midwest region. This is our catchment area. This is a photograph from several months ago of a meetup of part of our team and our friend Michal in Chicago with the Jewish Women's Foundation there. This is our theory of action. It begins with convening a professional team to do work of investing in the leadership of Jews of color, providing programming online and face-to-face, as well as providing nimble supports when our communities ask us for help. And that then we believe we increase support, connection, and visibility among Jews of color, and this is what we're finding, and that this contributes to full community impact for the whole Jewish community and communities of color. Since our launch, our work has shaken out into these key areas and have gone to lift up our overall strategy, which I'm not going to read through for you, but a really important part is working outside the Jewish community to address issues of racism, and also doing the inward-facing work to address the ways that racism affects our experiences also in our Jewish communities. We launched right before the pandemic and then went on Zoom like everyone and did some really exciting and high quality Zoom-based programming. And then more recently, we're coming back to face-to-face programming. There's Michal again. Michal was in Milwaukee where she led Abuna, the traditional Ethiopian coffee ceremony. We also had during Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of repentance between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we had a ceremonial fire in Minnesota led by Native American Jews from our region and our new rabbi in residence, Rabbi Mira Rivera, who I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, know. She's a wonderful community leader, and she was born in Detroit. And Michal, of course, lives in Ohio. This is the Tashlich ceremony that took place during that ceremonial fire event. These are some Edot stakeholders with the governor of Wisconsin over the summer. We had an amazing online sukkah hop recently. We have 2 fellows placed with us from the Jews of Color Organizing Fellowship with Join for Justice. We've been wanting to start a fellows program for a long time, so this is really exciting for us. We're partnering right now on a Midwest Jews of Color session on using midot practice to bolster our anti-racism work. Told you about our wonderful rabbi in residence. We started 2 new initiatives last year, a mini grants fund to really seed grassroots change making in our own small way, and also a relief fund where we're providing, again, nimble supports to really help community members when they ask us for support. Here's a recent mini grants program that took place, Cantor Aviva Marer in Indianapolis. She is from the B'nai Israel East Indian community, and she did a program on this very special ceremony, the Melita ceremony from their culture. We also have been doing work around anti-Semitism in schools. We got a call from an African-American Jewish family last spring saying there are swastikas in our school and we need intersectional Jewish leadership of color to come into our children's school and support. In this next period, we're just working to grow. Edot is no one's full-time job, and we are hitting a wonderful stride with our current model, but we do want to follow our North Star of investing in the leadership of Jews of color in our region and really make sure that people are being properly compensated for our work. And so our website is edotmidwest.org, and there is a donate link. Thank you in advance for helping to get the word out. We're always looking for new opportunities to connect in our region, as well as connecting outside of our region to further our overall mission. The support of Illuminate makes such a big difference for us. I live in a community where there's a federation that's not doing the kinds of funding for community-based leaders and programming the way that we find in larger communities. And so we think of our work with Illuminate as kind of like, enabling us to be able to provide flexible options when people come and ask us for help. A synagogue in Madison, Wisconsin doesn't have the same budget as a synagogue in New York City, or even a synagogue in Chicago for that matter. And so we try to think in really nuanced ways about different new types of partnerships that are going to support our folks and our communities here at home. I hope I didn't go longer than I said I was going to go on the slides, but I did want to make sure to use those to not forget a few important points, and also for you to be able to see some photographs of us and our people and our beautiful flyers for our past programs. So
thank you so much, Shahanna. I'd love to dive a little deeper with you on a couple of the theories of action, because I'd love to hear some more specifics. First, I would say on how you're investing in the leadership of Jews of color in your region. I'd love to hear a little bit more specifically about how you're doing that.
yes, No Jew of color does any work for us as a volunteer. We always compensate, even the young people. We had a really innovative teen mentor program where the teens were the mentors and they got paid also to come to programming, and where we also provided incentives for the families that the teens who were working for. So I would just say, the main thing is making sure that we're not perpetuating patterns of people of color being expected to work for free or be severely underpaid. We're working on the severely underpaid piece, but we are really pretty adamant that no Jew of color does any work for us for free. We get calls also from Jews of color in their communities who say, I'm doing this work. I'm being expected to do it all for free. It's a burden for me. And then we'll work to get that person some sort of a stipend. After George Floyd's murder, there were Black Jews in Minneapolis who were getting calls all day and all night from reporters and people who wanted their thinking and so forth. And it was challenging to watch it happening. So I picked up the phone and said, we're AJOT and we want to support you. And we would like to give you a stipend for all of this emotional labor that you're doing in this critical moment, because we need your leadership. We need your voice, but not as a volunteer.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You also talked about your responsiveness, right, in the form of your relief fund and your mini grants. Can you share a few examples of specific programs or initiatives or, grants that you've provided?
Sure. So you saw Cantor Aviva in Indianapolis, who did a program just the other day for her community about her tradition from her B'nai Israel Indian community. Another of the mini grants is about supporting Jewish students in historically Black colleges and universities. There was another program that was about Jewish traditions across the Caribbean. There was a Black and Jewish heritage chocolatier who had a big surplus of boutique Hanukkah chocolates. And so we helped to offset the cost for that small business owner and distributed all those chocolates to Jewish families of color across. This was in Wisconsin. So those are some of our mini grant examples. And then the relief fund is for when folks are facing eviction, severe food insecurity. There's a disabled community member, I won't say the name or the city, but they were recently, the place where they were living was purchased and they were being put out by the new landlords. Mm-hmm. And this person needed to relocate. And it was a very big deal. It wasn't like, oh, for me, I have to move. I don't need a ton of support, but this person, because of their disability and because of their monetary situation, they really needed a lot of help. And we not only paid the money for furnishing a new apartment, partial first month's rent, payment for people to come in and clean the old apartment, and so forth. We've spent a lot of time giving moral support, not only to this person, but also to the team we've assembled around this person to support them. I feel like I'm living my dream when I tell you about that part of our work. I'm so proud. I'm so pleased that this is what we're doing, and that at this point, when this call for help came, we were ready. We had the relief fund ready to go. We said, of course, can turn this around for you very, very quickly. And we've been able to help other individuals and families also quickly. And yeah.
It's so deeply rooted, right, in our Jewish values, right, of chesed, of loving kindness, of tzedakah, like, so that you have this set up and ready to go to be responsive in this way. It's really beautiful, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Affinity groups. A lot of your programming, is around, Jews of color. Talk to us about the role of affinity groups and, more importantly, the importance of affinity groups.
Sure. So when people say affinity groups, they
Forgive me if that's the wrong term.
That's okay. I'm trying to think of how to be crisp here. I'll start with this. I'm so glad to be here in this affinity space with all of you. Thank you, Illuminate, for convening these wonderful affinity spaces for Jewish women. Many of our Jewish community spaces are wonderful affinity spaces, not only for women, but for Jews. So affinity space generally means carving out a place for people of a particular background to be able to come together to do something. I love my synagogue. It's an amazing affinity space. And we have a new band there, which is also like this affinity space within that affinity space. Around racial justice work and diversity work, those of you who have been around that work for a while, we used to call it caucus work, caucus spaces. And so our work is about lifting up Jews of color and diverse Jewish families in our region. You saw the photograph of my family. We're mixed. And I'm just thinking, like, I know very few Jewish families in my region that have people of color in the family and that don't have non-people of color Jews in the family. Our families are mixed. And of course, this is the story of the Jews. We're mixed. And so we do a lot of affinity space work for Jews of color and diverse Jewish families. And our programs are open to the full community. Very rarely do we not allow non-people of color to come to our programs. You saw in that original, my early slide, the quote from Alana Kaufman at JOCI, who talks about Jews of color leaving the Jewish community. And I do know a lot of, I call them the used to be's. I used to be Jewish, but I had to leave, or I chose to leave because of the racism, because I got sick of being asked, how are you Jewish? What are you doing here? But most of the Jews of color in the Midwest region who I know personally, I don't know, maybe not most, but I'll say a lot, are kids, and they don't have a Jew of color parent. A lot of them are Jewish kids of color with a white mom, like me, a white Jewish mom. And so, you can't have a Zoom Havdalah and there's a 4-year-old who doesn't know how to get on the computer. Maybe they all know now how to Zoom because of the pandemic and everything. But the point I'm trying to make a little bit lightheartedly is that a lot of our stakeholders are kids who are engaging with us along with a parent who's not a Jewish person of color. With that said, affinity spaces are critically important. They're critically important, right? We know this as Jews. We have a lot of Jewish community affinity spaces. And we know this in our racial justice work. It's critically important to carve out spaces where we feel more safety to work on different ideas and issues. I will also say that there's a lot of facilitation of affinity spaces that happens without a lot of expertise. We used to have some really tight protocols, right, Mom? For the caucus work, we would go off to oh, hi, Lisa Dawn. Hey, Lisa Dawn and I know from doing this work together. This is my school buddy. Hi.
So great to see you.
Nice to see you, honey. We would go off, we would do the caucus, then come back and report out to the, we would have these protocols. And I think we need to bring some of that tightness back. The last thing I'll say is one of the things that I love about being one of Illuminate's crown jewels, a part of this circle of Jewish sisterhood, is the diversity. And by that, I mean the women in that program represent the whole Jewish world. And I love the affinity spaces and I love the caucus work, but not at the expense of being a part of the full Jewish community. That's what this thing is all about. And so in conclusion, a long answer to your short question, Rachel, I do love, one of the things I really love about being a part of Illuminate is being a part of this cohort of international Jewish women from all over. I get so much perspective, so much perspective.
I'm so glad to hear that because we try to be very intentional. And for those who don't know Illuminate, we try to be very intentional about creating cohorts that represent the whole Jewish community. So whether that's age, race, geography, religious denomination, sexual orientation. I mean, we really want to have all of these voices coming together to make sure that the people are represented. And so we really do try to take care in that arena. So I'm glad that it pays off for you.
Yes.
You've been doing this work for a very long time. Have you seen an evolution to it over the time that you've doing it? And what evolution is that?
Definitely. The millennial leaders. The millennial leaders don't go along to get along and don't stand for stuff. I'm 53, so just to place me. I was born in 1970. I'm a little bit older now. A little bit older. I know I'm behind some of the elders here. But I'm also ahead of some of the younger leaders here, and maybe even some of the people here who consider themselves becoming elders. I might be older than you. And I'm so excited for the fact that these millennial leaders have come in, like intersectionality. It's a thing, and we're not going to spend time explaining what it is. You know what I mean? Certainly the funding landscape has changed. I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say that I worked for decades to try to launch something like a DOTE, but I was not able to secure funding. And now, and this happened before George Floyd's murder, the funding landscape changed and funds became available to focus on racial and ethnic diversity in the Jewish community. And it was coming from larger communities, just kind of underscoring this piece about how there are regional differences about what the philanthropic landscape looks like. So the funding came at a really good time for me and my leadership. I had been doing this work by then for a very long time. And so it was, a good challenge, but not an overwhelmingly heavy lift to get things going and to convene an amazing team of Midwest Jewish leaders of color who are getting compensated for doing the work. Maybe not fairly, but something. these are big, big, big changes from the old days when not only would you be just volunteering all the time, but let's talk about the technology we were using back then in the 90s and even the early 2000s. We would use something called a phone book. You would look up a person's name there, call on ye old telephone, go and have to meet, get to meet face to face. This was the work of the Black Jews finding each other back then, and social media has certainly changed everything. I mean, that there's another African-American Jewish woman named Shahanna McKinney, and it's easy for us to find each other and easy for us to tell people we're not the same person. You know, all that is social media. It's much quicker. That would have represented years and years, you know, back in the day. So I think cultural changes coming with the younger leaders and the technology, big changes.
Yes. So we're peers, and I too can have seen that evolution in about the same time frame that you have. And it's incredible. And for the things that we bemoan about social media, the ability to connect, to network, to mobilize, to create revolutions. I mean, that's all part of the benefits that have evolved with that technology. So it's true. We huge differences in the way we operate. You alluded to this a little bit earlier, and you being on a campus in Wisconsin, you know, I think the rise in anti-Semitism is at the forefront of everyone's mind. I've gotten a question in the chat about it as well. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing there, both, you know, within your campus community, and how that may or may not manifest, you know, also with differently or the same within the Jews of colors community, and what people are facing right now, what you're seeing on the ground?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say that we serve a constituency that represents all of the types of diversity in the Jewish community that you might be able to imagine. Age, race, I say like this because race, you know, it's a construct that we also experience as being very real. Age, race, ethnicity, region, language, observance level, opinions on Israel, Palestine, and on and on and on. So that's the first thing that I want to say is I do feel that sometimes there are assumptions made about what kinds of diversity we have in our stakeholder groups as Jews of color, what kinds of politics people have, what kinds, you know, where we live, whatever the diversity is that you're imagining, that's us, except that my thing is the Midwest region. That's the one stereotype that I will say. But even then, we also do this like from and of the Midwest thing, like Rabbi Mira hasn't lived in the Midwest, you know, for a very long time, but we claim her real hard. So, and I'll also say that, you know, I'm thinking about, I'm a parent of a college student. That's actually where I'm thinking about anti-Semitism on college campuses much more than with regard to work. I'm going to give a long answer. It's going to be a two-part answer. The first thing is I'll answer the question. And then the second thing is I want to talk a little bit about this new project with Michal that also lives at UW-Madison. I will say that in my work, I actually am not personally noticing a spike in anti-Semitism on our college campus. And I think that the things that I have heard about are the things probably that you've also heard about. And one of the interesting things about our community is, I keep giving shouts out to our Madison Federation. Our federation is tiny. Our federation is this big compared to our Hillel, which is like this. because we're a huge college campus. So our Hillel is actually a really important community institution here. And so what happens on the college campus is experienced by the Jewish community also as, I think, differently than like when in my hometown of Milwaukee, where the college campuses are just a much smaller part of the whole. I made a decision a few years ago that one way I was going to work against anti-Semitism was I was going to be much more out as a Jew, talk about being Jewish much more, tell people that I'm Jewish all the time. And I will say that, my colleagues have just wanted to know if I'm okay. I'm not teaching. I'm not teaching right now on campus, so I don't have a handle on the day-to-day in the classroom. But when something pops off, we generally hear about it. I will say, as a parent, I've been terrified. But my son, I think part of it also is so much is online now. I think my son is spending a lot less time like walking around in public university spaces, getting from place to place than I was. But I think our big challenge as a community is, Lisa D and the other people in here who we used to call ourselves the diversity trainers. And in our graduate program, social justice education at University of Massachusetts at Amherst, we had a very intersectional model where anti-Semitism was very much an important part of our social justice analysis. One of the things that I think we haven't been doing as a Jewish community is the proactive work around including Jews and anti-Semitism in our social justice analysis. And we've kind of been over here thinking anti-Semitism is something totally separate from the other diversity stuff in this society in the US. It is distinct, but it is not separate. It is distinct, but it is not connected. And I'm very proud that about a year ago, I told my local YWCA here that I wanted to start including sessions on, it has a long name, but I was a high school English teacher. I like making long names for stuff where I choose every word really carefully, like Edota Midwest is a nod to the exoticism that the Oriental Jews have faced. I'm from an exotic place called, like Edota Mizrach. I'm from an exotic place called Wisconsin.
I'm Midwest.
Yeah. Anyway, so the name of this YWCA program is the, Shalom Intersectional Intersectional Affinity Space for Jews and Allies. And then the session is called All That and Including Jews and Anti-Semitism in Our Intersectional Social Justice Analysis. And I'll say, as a person who's been challenging myself to learn more and do more teaching about anti-Semitism, I think generally people don't have a very good analysis of anti-Semitism. And so there's a lot of confusion and a lot of kind of like, a lot of new for people, whereas we really need to get proactive. Because one of the things, Lisa D, remember what Maurianne Adams taught us, that anti-Semitism is cyclical. It's always going to be cyclical, or that it always has been cyclical. and that, we can be thinking proactively, unfortunately, hopefully not, but probably yes, of a future rise in anti-Semitism. This is one thing I do really admire about the young leaders who have been calling so steadfastly for, security being in solidarity and building those relationships. I think everybody needs to be doing that proactively, regardless of our political views and beliefs. Now, that was the first part of that long answer. The second part is we have a new program at UW-Madison. I'm going to show you the website and I'm going to highlight Michal. And Michal, will you just quickly explain what it is while I run and get my charging cord for my computer so that I don't leave unexpectedly here? That would be so embarrassing.
And just so you know, we only have about 5 minutes left. Hello, Michal. So great to see
everyone.
you.
Shahanna, this is your time. It is just amazing. Shalom Curriculum Project, it's a new initiative that Shahanna is really the founder and incubator and adult. Shalom Curriculum really try to prototype and create materials, curriculum materials that will reflect the diversity in the Jewish community and early childhood education. From her experience, not having a diverse curriculum in the early childhood. So this is something that we try to create material that will highlight and reflect and bring the beauty and a diversity in the Jewish community. So Shahanna, this is your time. Go ahead.
Thank you, Michal. For those of you who don't know Michal is also part of our collective, and she's also one of our jewels from cohort number 2. And we always love when we see our jewels cross cohorts collaborating together. I mean, that's really what we hope to create here, is this network of people who are doing work to be able to amplify each other's impact by partnering. So thrilled to see that you're working together.
Thanks, Michal. This project is a project that actually ADOT incubated. So one of the things that ADOT does is it incubates people's leadership and also ideas. And so there are a few awesome projects that actually have grown out of ADOT, and we're so proud, so on mission for us.
That's amazing. Well, we are coming to the end of our time. And, obviously we're sort of seeing, and you've touched on it a little bit, about the collective and the role that the collective has played for you over the last year and a half. Can you tell us a little bit more? I mean, obviously you're leveraging relationships there. Are there other aspects of it that you have found valuable, and how, if at all, has it impacted your leadership?
You're right. I did talk about this, and I know we're short on time. So I think the only thing I would add is that in our efforts to do right by Jews of color, folks who are not necessarily Jews of color have created lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of affinity spaces, and that's great. And we're not going to get there by affinity spaces alone. And by that I mean race-based affinity spaces. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get there as a Jewish community by race-based affinity spaces alone. And that this is the only leadership group that I'm currently in, except for the Reconstructionist movement. Hello, Reconstructionists. I sit on the board of Reconstructing Judaism. But as far as like cohorts, programs, this is the only Rise Up also would count, but I haven't attended. I've always delegated someone to go. For me personally, it's the only leadership program that I'm in that isn't a race-based affinity space. And this is the space that feels most like my family to me, because my family is mixed. And so I would ask that as we move forward, let's think together and commit together. How do we hold on to the great things about affinity space and also think more broadly? I think that this might also be a great call just for us as Jews moving into this next period as we're thinking about Jewish community affinity spaces and picking up the pieces after this horrible, horrible disaster. And if for anyone who's watching this in the future, it's December 13th, and I'm talking about the war in Gaza. As we pick up the pieces, how are we going to be thinking about our Jewish community affinity spaces and our wider community affinity spaces, and are just being members of wider communities? What is that all going to mean? How are we going to do it better? How can we look back to techniques we've used in the past and upgrade and update our approaches for a new reality of moving forward for all?
That's so beautiful. And I think sort of the perfect place for us to end. We obviously need these places where we can gather strength and comfort, and we need to be building bridges and having allies and creating conversations and deep relationships with all. So thank you so much, Shahanna, for this hour together. I'm going to welcome back on Melanie to say goodbye to everyone. Happy Hanukkah. May the coming days and weeks and year bring much more light than the last 2 months. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Shahanna. Thank you, Rachel. Shahanna, we really appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom and story with us. And thank you, Rachel, for leading us through this conversation. We hope you will all sign up for updates from Adot Midwest to learn more about Shahanna's ongoing work, as well as Illuminate's newsletter. And I believe Eva's putting that in the chat so that you can sign up for both. We believe at Illuminate that the integration of activism and philanthropy is essential to creating systemic change. As we approach the end of the year, we know you are making important decisions about giving. We ask that you consider making a generous gift to Illuminate. The women we support, like Shahanna, are on the front lines of today's pressing issues. When you support Illuminate, you not only support 50 organizations run by phenomenal women, you're a part of a movement. Together, we are advancing a deeply feminist response to global social challenges and creating a bright future. We offer these sessions at no cost to you, but if you find value in what you're doing, please consider us. Please also join our next Crown Jewel conversation on January 4th at noon with Nina Smith, who's the CEO of Good Weave International. Thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you soon.